Hello and welcome back to the 10th episode. Episode 10. Uh, you know, Welcome to my pre-podcast ramblings. Today we're going to be talking about a metaphorical cage. Nate and I had a good time on this one, per usual, as we always do. Uh, so we're happy you're here and we hope you enjoy. Much love from the boys downstairs. Let's get into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, I I'm feeling like sentimental right now.
You feeling sentimental that we're back?
A little, but no, not that we're back. Just like it's always nice to be back. But I was on my Instagram and one of my old friends, I'm sure you can relate to this. I have a couple of old friends that I'm not like fully in contact with
Yeah,
anymore, but they I had like a really good friendship with this girl and a bunch of other people that I used to do like this after school program with,
yeah.
and she's like pursuing music right now, and she just got on the talk, which is dope. And I saw her Instagram post about her TikTok, and like if you check out my story later, I threw it on there.
Oh.
um
Wait,
and
what? Like she got a song on TikTok?
oh, I don't know if she has I know she makes
Like,
music. I can tell you her TikTok handle. I'll put it up right now actually, so in case anyone else wants to see. She only has 4 videos up right now. The first one I think is of her singing. She has an amazing voice. She has perfect pitch. And I've known her since I was like in 4th grade. Yeah, she's dope as fuck. And I just so her at is here, let's see. Oh, I don't know how to put it up on this. It's just at TG0NZ. So her name's Taylor Gonzalez, and her ad is at TG0NZ. And I can send you some of her shit later, but just in case anyone else wants to check her out. So the reason that I'm feeling like kind of sentimental is like I threw her shit on my story, and then she texted me back, and I was just like vibing. We were just talking, and it was just cool because like I don't know. I just feel like it's a cool feeling when you connect with somebody from like so long ago, but like that like that's like mutual friendship is still there and like
right.
strong.
That's a good feeling, like when it works. It sucks when you like see somebody from your past and you're like, oh, okay, I know why you're in like my past. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful, dude.
yeah,
That's like we're getting to that like weird age where people are starting to do like real things. Like
yeah.
dude, like one of my friends from home just bought like, or I guess he's looking for like a real house right now, which is just like, whoa, like, oh, okay, like we're all like kind of moving on. Um, like a couple of them are like, all right, we're going to do like a master's or a doctorate because they're like graduating next year. So they're like, all right, like bye for like 2 years, unless you guys want to like come up
Facts.
and it's like,
Yeah,
and like that's not the same thing as like, going back and meeting with somebody from like far ago, but it's like almost like a lighter version of, oh, like look at how much has changed since.
mm,
Like it's beautiful that like getting that unspoken now. That's sick. Like
yeah. It's definitely cool. I had been thinking of her and the little after school activity. So that let me just explain this. This is pretty dope. I was thinking of our like whole team the other day, explaining to Carolyn about we used to do this thing called DI. Do you know what that is? So it's just like um younger age like acting thing kind of deal. It's like acting, creative problem solving, and that kind of thing. And it's called DI, Destination Imagination, which is like a pretty corny name, but it's pretty dope. And I've been doing it since I was in like 3rd grade. And
yeah,
basically like the idea behind it is you get together with a group of like I think up to 8 students. We started doing it in 3rd grade with my mom and one of my buddies' dads, and they just like kind of are there. They're like not allowed to help really at all. And you like there's different categories to compete under. So all year you practice, either like a play or so there's two aspects. There's the acting and then there's a problem solving challenge. So
okay,
It's called an instant challenge, and then there's like the
Do they?
performance.
Okay. All right. Do they have like whatchamacallit? Empire Odyssey of the Mind in like Massachusetts? Was that a thing?
No, but that could be similar.
Yeah, I know some people. I know there's like a thing at our school, and I know some people who did it that said it was very much. It's just like creative problem solving. Obviously missing the acting, but like, was that something that you did through the school, or was that just a totally external thing?
It was, while the school didn't host it, my mom and Mr. Bowerman, my buddy's dad, did, but we did it at school
Oh, okay.
after school. Like we
All
kind
right.
of just used the space.
Right. Okay.
So
So that's still like its own private thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So we kind of fucked around and did a couple different like acting categories for the first couple of years, and then the year that we were really good, we did an improv um category where they give you a list of like, I think it was something near like 15 words, and then you all year, you and your buddies would just take those 15 words, and three would be drawn from a hat on the day of,
Okay.
and you have to like basically put on like a, I don't know if it was 10 or 15-minute performance
Whoa.
with those three words. Yeah. So like we would practice different variations, this, that, and the other thing. And there's tons of combinations, so we might not practice all of them before. But the cool part was like no one could help us. Like we could look up shit on our own, but like if we didn't know what a word was, we had to figure it out, and like that kind of thing, like so that was dope. And so we did like our little regional thing, and we did really well. And then we did the state level, and then we like came in second, and then we ended up going to globals. So globals was in Tennessee, and there were people from all around the world there, and it was really, really dope. And so the cool thing about that is like you bring a bunch of pins from your region, and then you sit out with like a towel under like these massive tents and trade pins with people from around the world.
That's cool.
Yeah. So like, long story short, dude, it was like a really, really cool, like odd, but like dope side story in my like childhood that made a huge impact on me. And like this girl,
Oh, you know her through that?
yeah, she was in it with
okay.
me.
I was like, dude, you probably said that, but I was like, this is such a cool like tangent, but like I totally forgot what it related to.
Yeah. Like, how does this relate? Yeah. So that's it. So I met Taylor through that, and she was on the team when we went to globals, and like she's just always been really talented, really creative. So check her out. But yeah, dude, it just shit like that. It kind of hit me, like I've got a few in me, and it just like kind of flows the emotional juices. And I'm like, God,
Yeah.
like this world is so fast. Like everything is like bang, bang, and it's over, I would kill to go back to that.
Doesn't it? I mean, yeah, but it doesn't like, I don't know. It didn't start feeling like this until like recently, I feel.
Yeah.
It's just like getting old enough to realize, oh, I'm like nearing the adult world. And that's when everything is just like, what's fucked up about it is every year as you go up, you're counting the grade and it's really low. So every new year feels like some new big level. It's like, what do you do when you stay at the same level for every single year? Like, that's going to be such an interesting, like, mental health labyrinth that everybody needs to like walk through. Like, holy shit.
Dude, that whole like adulting thing. Like that's a thing that people say, like adulting. Like now I got to do like adult, and that's so sick what you said. Like, like you progress in grades, right? But like,
Yeah,
it feels like for me, and like I think this is what you were just saying. Like it feels like I just finished first grade. Like,
I mean,
not
in the grand scheme,
academically.
yes, yeah, just development wise, because that's really what this is. The problem is nobody's naming it for you anymore. So it's like, all right, well, how sane you stay in second grade just depends on your ability to realize in second grade. Like, and what second grader has it all figured out? Like, did you watch? You know who Ramdas is? Did you watch that mini like short on Netflix? It was like Ramdas going home. It might have been on there for a few years, but I like just saw it the other day.
I didn't see it, but I followed him because you told me to, and I like his posts.
dude, yeah. It's like, I mean, it sucks that he's like gone because that's not a person who can contribute anymore. But like I was talking about like this specific thing with my girlfriend when she was up the other day, and I was like, hey, uh, don't you think like it makes no sense that somebody like Ram Dass or a guru or some kind of like meditation or spiritual master, it's like, do you want everybody to try and dissolve their ego as much as possible that you all get to that level? Because in all honesty, you know, there can only be so many of those at a time for it to be positive, helpful, like all the, to basically be
Mm,
like advantageous.
right.
You don't need that many teachers. There's always going to be
Mhm.
more students, but the goal of that student, like some students are great students and they go all the way up in academia, right? Because they're just obsessed with being a student. But that person who is like in academia, what if it's always just like, you know, I mean, I guess if you're doing research, it's like exploring the bounds of that specific place, which like, it does, like really create new things that expand the bounds of human knowledge,
Mm,
like um like Stephen Hawkins or Hawking was one of them. Like he explored the bounds of human knowledge, but there's not that many of him that are involved in academia. Um, and the same way with like spiritual growth, like a master like that, there's not many other like him. Like that's the Stephen Hawking of just like knowing yourself and like you
right.
know any kind of like self-help practice or like spiritual practice. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're following those teachings to a T, he's telling you is he telling you like how to get like him? Because you don't want to be at that level because you can no longer put all of this positive product you've created and worked so hard on back into the society that you either know is harmful because it's harmed you or you've seen it harm others or there's just something you want to change. Like I I'm worried that if everybody totally follows the whole thing about totally destroy your ego, then it's like, well, that's not the point, you know. But
Mm,
this goes back to the like yin yang that we've talked about so much. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry I like ranted forever on that.
No, dude, that was not bad at all. That was hardly a rant for our standards. But no, I totally get you. I think that what's interesting about people like that is it's like you said, there's so few of them that when you see somebody who's like had a level of awakening that is like so far past everyone else. Like clearly just and like you could say that it's bullshit, this, that, and the other thing. Like some of these people are real deal fucking
Yeah,
woke. Like some of these people are just it's not and it almost seems like I think a lot of people will like write that off because it almost seems like so hard to comprehend that somebody could have achieved that level, right? And
yeah,
so I think, even if people were 20 or 30% of what he was, that can make a big change. I think that's the thing. It's like exactly what you're saying. Like you don't need
yeah.
to be 100% Ram Dass. Like you could
Right.
just be 30 and
You
like you
you
could make
also
yourself
shouldn't. You shouldn't like be
right,
100%.
right.
Yeah, dude. Don't I mean it's like it also comes down to kind of what you feel about the whole thing, right? And we've
Mhm.
both expressed in different forms a want to help society to do that. It's like, well, we still got to be here.
Right.
People love seeing that kind of spiritual or emotional or metaphysical being, or I guess freeness. Like they love being able to see, oh, he's totally free of his ego. That's
Mm,
only because he's totally out of the cage. You're just jealous of the fact that he's running free right now. It's like,
right.
which, yeah, I mean, that's probably great for him. So he'll be able to help people run a little bit more free, but he'll never be able to get somebody else fully out of the cage. They need to get themselves out of the cage. And because of that, you're not really helping the people who are in the cage. Or at least if all the very smart and driven people who want to help and want to be a better version of themselves leave the cage, and this might be a better like metaphor or way of looking at it. If all those people leave, what does that do to the people who are still stuck in this cage with all of the evil people and like sociopathic people and self-interested people, or just like unaware people? Like,
Yeah. You need a bridge between those two extremes.
right, you just need to hang out in the cage. Even if you know you can get out, it might be more noble. I mean, this is my belief. I think it's more noble to, first of all, I can't get out like yet. It's just like it's not a reality, but also like if I did get there, it's like I wouldn't want to because it's more important to stay here and just help out and make things as good as they are, because too many people are trapped in the cage for it to not be my problem.
Yeah, and that's a heavy weight to bear. I mean, I think that kind of begs the question of, what really changes somebody? Because, some people say
Um,
they have an experience or a video or a person in their life that like really like a switch flips and they change, but
yeah,
change doesn't come without, massive action. And I mean, that's what I've found in my life. So like exactly like you're saying, like somebody like Ram Dass like it's a beautiful like beacon of what we could be as humans, but without without the work behind that, like following his Instagram doesn't make me Ram Dass.
yeah,
And like that, but that's important because like, yeah, like, people think that they're, following the right accounts and like, well, but like, okay, like, yeah, like, like Jimmy, like I just saw your story, dude. Like you're becoming awakened, but like, what did you do today? Like,
right,
did you just scroll through Instagram and repost that, or did you find a little time for yourself? Did you, and that's the kind of thing with like, uh, you know, um, stepping in the direction of, that self development. It's like
right,
I find that most of the time you have to be alone with your thoughts and you have to be really like hard on yourself, and it's hard to be hard on yourself. Like you don't want to do that. Your brain doesn't want to do that every day. Like, like take time to meditate, take time to exercise, that kind of thing. And it's like without the follow through,
right.
we're not going to get out of the cage. And it's like it's hard to just have some beacon up here to guide people out of the cage. It's like, they're like blindly like a moth in the light, like
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
light, but they're not entering, they're not getting what they want.
Right. They're not seeing the dangers along the way. They're not seeing the intense heat around it. It's like you got to figure out a way to deal with that first.
The
Dude, I
work.
get what you mean. I get what you mean. Like that's the importance I think of that's the importance I think of therapists. That's the importance I think of a good upraising. That's the importance of surrounding yourself with like supportive people and everything. People who will challenge you, because you're right. Some people that's hard. Like for other people, I almost feel like that path is like the only way out for those people that do constantly criticize themselves or like, you know, constantly say, well, this needs to be better, like that needs to be better, like all these things. The only option is for them to make peace with that. But you're
Right.
right, like just with anything else, um, you need to be able to like look at it objectively.
Mm,
Just with anything else, you need to actually be practicing or you won't get better.
right.
And there are a lot of people, dude. My sister was pointing this out the other day. She's like, there's so many people I see now who have adopted like that whole, especially she was like, especially girls, because it's like such an aesthetic, like people who like dress or like act like, oh, like spiritual, like the faded leather, like, just you know what I'm talking about.
Bell
Like,
bottom jeans and
yeah,
yeah.
some people are for real and it comes from a real place. They're like, not only do I like the style of this, but this was also like not bought through ASOS. It's not a like recreation product. Like, um, but yeah, it's those people who they're like, well, I want to be this, it's not inauthentic that I want to be this, but they're like, they just lost it along the way. It's the
Yeah.
same as like really liking basketball, but being trash at it and never trying to get better. Like if that's your thing, if you like it, then cool, consume media related to it. But like, bro, you're not in the NBA, you know? Like you didn't even like you didn't do the work necessary like to play in your like varsity team. So it's like, you know, you can catch up to that level. You can catch up to it because you haven't peaked yet. The nice thing about working on yourself is you never really peak until you do, but that only comes after you put in the time. Like
Yeah, and I
it's
think
a
I
process.
think the hardest working people don't believe that there is a peak. It's almost like this never enough mentality. Which has value, that just basically says like, there's always it's a destination or it's a journey. The destination it's irrelevant, like it's not where you're going, it's how you get there, that kind of thing.
Right.
And you could get to the destination by, buying a bunch of fucking hippie clothes, or you could take the journey of being somebody who believes in that kind of thing. And that's a distinction that people need to be honest with themselves
Yep.
about.
I know, but like there's so many people that do like tarot cards and stuff. Like you're just like, what are you doing, man? Like
Mm.
I understand that that has some kind of like, I don't know, maybe I just don't get it. Like, I mean, some people are like, well, you know what? They can like tell you your like fate and everything, or like they can like give clues to like things. It's like, all right, that's kind of cool, but also like, do you actually totally believe that? It's cool if you do. It's cool if you've realized it works for you and it somehow is like reading your patterns. That's great. But like for somebody who's already practical and already cynical about stuff, it's like, well, I'm just like, just do what works. Like that's
Yeah.
what that's another beautiful thing that like Ram Dass did. I mean, his retreats and lectures talk about how to better yourself, how to work on yourself. It's not like the entire roadmap he followed, but I mean, it's things that he's learned through basically making a career out of this. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, Russell Brand, I've been getting into Russell Brand recently. Like, he has this dope podcast that's like, it's called I think it's called Under the Skin, but they just talk about things in like, you know, a really cool way. It makes it like it definitely makes it more profound to
Mm.
hear when they talk about it. And Russell Brand has so many perspectives because he went through the valley of the shadow of death, you know. He was
Mm.
like deeply like drug addicted, like in a bad place mentally, like losing his like it was kind of like his fall from fame in Hollywood too. So it was like, oh, okay. There's all of this fucked up, like elevated image of yourself that's crashing down at this time. And if you're not already stable going into that, you know, you have no choice but to crash and burn right now. Like, um, so yeah, it's cool. And he does that same kind of thing, like laying things out for people to better understand. Like, I think if you're going to do anything with that kind of, you know, making it out of the cage entirely and running through the meadows, like you can't just run through the meadows. You've got to try and at least send messages, at least relay messages back into the cage. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, it's cool to see people who or to consume content where people they just tell their story in a different way, or they just tell their story, period, and like people really resonate with that when they hear something and they're like, oh, like, like going through like this struggle in my life, and like this is what happened when I like fell out from Hollywood and went into this dark place and blah blah blah. It's like people really connect with that, and
well, it's a little unrelatable because the whole Hollywood thing. Like, I get that, but it's
well,
you're right. It's relatable in the fact you go through struggle. Yeah,
it's a human thing to fail. I think that's the main thing, and I think people find comfort in people who are like wildly successful when they fail. I think that's like a little bit of a human condition there. Like, they find comfort in the fact that like, those people are still human and they still fuck up and they still fall and they still, they're not always in the spotlight. And I think like that's probably like an ego thing. That's probably just like making yourself feel better. But I don't know. I think what's amazing is that we have the ability to just like get a real view through the window of all of these famous people now. Like with the way that social media is, like you can follow anyone on anything, and you have like a window into their life, whether they're promoting themselves or, you know, one thing or the other. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it can be good and bad. And I think that it's like, I don't know.
Well, what do you mean by like, what do we mean by good and bad? Like bad for them, bad for everybody else, like a little bit
both.
of both, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like in that, you know, it's kind of like consuming that media, you have to have that filter, right? Oh, this is something I was actually hoping to talk to you about. I wish that we talked more about um filtering and like having a little bit of scrutiny and a little bit of you know, what's it called? Just like being conscious of what we're believing, you know, like having a little bit of like, you know, discerning between like truth and, you know, like facts and fiction, that kind of thing. It's like I feel like nowadays, like people just take everything at face value, you know, like, oh, I just saw this tweet, like, oh, that's the truth now. Like that's gotta be real. That could this, that, and the other. And it's like, I don't know. I think that this, not to get political, just to bring this back to like the spiritual side of things. Um, you
I don't
know,
think it's political, dude. I don't think that's political at all.
I was gonna say it could be, but I'm saying like with the spiritual thing, like when you see something that you think you fully believe in, you know, and then you try it out and it's like, oh, this wasn't right. Like people see um Keeping Up with the Kardashians and
Hmm.
they're like, oh
Oh,
fuck.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like let me get my lip injection. Let me get my this, that, and the other and buy the makeup. And it's like, and then it's like they do that and then, you know, maybe they don't feel anything. And it's like, fuck, man, like maybe you went the wrong way. Maybe that's bad for that. Maybe that's really bad for you.
Dude. Well, yeah, I mean, lip injections and Botox are definitely like they're definitely bad. But you mean like going that direction in like becoming very famous and like having a lot of eyes on you and like doing that thing, or you mean the people who are like following that example?
Both, but I think like
Oh, oh,
as consumers, the majority are consumers, you know?
yes,
So
yeah.
what I was saying was like I wish that we were more careful with what we consumed. It not only like there's something to be said for guilty pleasures, right? Like it's okay if you want to watch like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I don't get it. I don't want to watch it, but some people might enjoy that because it's a guilty pleasure. That's fine. But
You
it's
know,
like once you start valuing it at a certain level,
yeah, dude, I think it's almost impossible not to do that. If you're like a real, if you really enjoy something and it brings you a lot of like happiness, then you're going to get into it, even if it's a TV show. Like, how many
yeah.
people were really into Game of Thrones when it came out?
Hmm.
Fucking, that's like all workplaces talk about.
Right.
Like, I mean, if if somebody has something like it is Keeping Up with the Kardashians, it's so hard not to fall into that culture. I mean, that's the reason like fandoms, they're a really interesting phenomenon because it's a ton of people that have adopted almost the same personality, which is why they all get along so well. But it's because that personality is centered around like that one work. Like, oh, you just talk about it for fucking ever. I mean, I guess it's sort of the same thing with any other passion. But that's why, like, this is long-winded, but I'm agreeing with you that we need to be more discerning in what we're viewing because,
Right.
but I do think like with that caveat, the guilty pleasures are part of that. You know, you
Yeah.
do kind of need to be discerning with your guilty pleasures. Um, dude, I fucking like I've definitely talked to you about this. I know you know it's bad because I've been mentioning it in every podcast. I was playing this video game that I got, and I was like, "Yo, this is so cool. I haven't gotten into a video game in forever. Like I used to love Assassin's Creed. Like let's rip this." And um, I've just not been playing it like the past like 4 or 5 days, and I feel like I came out of like some kind of like drug induced stupor. I was bored and mad at like real life because it didn't give me these quick little hits. I realized that's what it was. I was coming off of video games, especially after not doing the entertainment for 5 hours a day. The
Right.
constant entertainment of video games was just like, oh my God. It was like, dude, that was like an opiate. I was like
Mm.
jonesing to get back to playing it.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
That's
uh,
real, dude. And
yeah,
that's exactly where that complacency starts to kick in, you know, and it's like I've been struggling with the biggest struggle. about being home for me right now is that my variables are much harder to control now.
Yeah.
I'm at school. The things, so just for people who like first listeners or whatever, like if you're not completely up to date with like me in my life, the things that I'm really trying to control right now are, I got like four things: time with my family, time with my girlfriend, um, time with myself, meaning like, working out, my own mental health, that kind of thing, and then my school, right? So those are the like top four right now. Okay. When I'm at school, you know, time with my family is taken away, right? So then I'm
Right.
at three, so and like I don't mind giving that time and energy to them, but it's now a pull, right? And like,
It's also, I mean, you're the time. It's easier too because like you're, I feel sometimes at school like my time is taken up a lot. I kind of like it at home because like Callie goes to our school, so it's like
right,
I have like I'm gonna see her like
right,
very often. So it's like, okay, well now this is I'm putting more time into, which I love doing, but I'm also conscious of the fact that I am using time and other things that I might have put this time and energy into, like
mm,
I could be working on. I mean, I'm lucky in that I think she helps me grow anyway, so it feels like progress when I'm with her, but it's still an energy thing. And it's like maybe I'm feeling good, like emotionally or mood wise. Like maybe it's just like, oh, I'm slacking on myself physically, and this is something I need to get out of my system. It's like, well, I can't go like lift during this time. Um, so it's like you have that control at school where it's like, okay, I see her on Tuesdays and like was it like Thursdays or Fridays, like twice a week. Like
right,
you have it down to a science. It's in your
yeah,
schedule. That's like, I have broad spaces of time here. Then it's like, all right, she'll come up for like 5, 6 days. Like I get what you mean in that it's nice to be away from that, like that
right.
all. It just yeah. But I mean that alone time, it's also like it's weird, right? It's a double-edged sword because it does allow you time to like a lot of time to reflect and mirror and really like, do your proper like shadow work, understand yourself. But, you know, since we're trying to help the people in the cage, I almost feel like it's sometimes better to be around multiple people or be pulled in multiple directions. Because it helps you like learn, like it
Yeah,
helps you learn how to work within the cage. The problem is I feel like I can't do the two for long stretches of time. I wish there was a way to turn it on and off.
so here's what I think is really important. There's a certain level of um happiness, I think, that follows fluidity in your life, right? So I'm saying about how, I'm not really in control of my schedule as much as I was at school, and that's affecting how
Yeah.
often I'm lifting, that's affecting my diet, and that's, I mean, that's my fault. Like, and like I am a big believer in taking that responsibility on my own, but going into this fluidity thing, like I think it's important to realize, and this is something I was just kind of like, you just kind of coerced this into my brain. Like, it's not, um, it's okay to be like in this, like transition into this other zone where
Yeah.
like now all my priorities are like flipped. And like, that's just the way the world is right now for me, and like, that's not a bad thing. Like, I can kind of like, it's like focus on what's in front of me instead of like, instead of being like, oh, back at school I was doing this and that. It's like, first of all, you could still do that here if you were a little bit like more disciplined. And also, if you have a little less time to do that, like that's okay. Like, this is for the people, exactly like you're saying, like the people in the cage, like, don't shit on yourself every time, that you've made a change and your life is harder or different. It's like, no, like it's like making the best of the moment that you're in, and like, and giving yourself some slack, some healthy slack, not too much, but enough that you're not shitting on yourself, and that you're not just like going regressing, because that's the biggest thing for me. It's like I almost feel like I'm regressing being home, in some aspects in the gym. Like I'm down a day a week in the gym. I was doing 6, now I'm doing 5. My diet at dinner and lunch is not as healthy as it was when I was at school. That kind of thing. And it's like I'm beating myself up, but I'm like, I'm enjoying family dinners with my family. Like I'm enjoying going out to get coffee and breakfast with Carolyn. Like that's priceless, and so like it's taking that step back.
Dude, I agree. I mean, that's interesting you say that. Like last quarantine when we went in, I was like, oh, I'm regressing really, really hard.
Mm.
But it's not the same kind of regression. Like I was just, it felt all like, it was all related to like anxiety in some way. I was like, oh, I'm like not understanding myself as much. Like I'm having a really hard time like dealing with that thing of like, oh, I'm like mad that I can't do this right now. Like, um, I'm like worried about what's going to happen. Like, what is this going to do to everything? Like, um, taking like that shit really beat me up. But then like multiple times throughout the like summer and even the fall semester, I was like, well, now I'm regressing like emotionally, you know? And that shit sucks because you're like, oh, something just bothered me that's never bothered me before. Like, I'm really like I'm tweaking over something that I would never normally like bother with. I think like getting comfortable with those happinesses is really, really hard. But I do agree it's the best way to do it. Like, I mean, the thing is, how do you get comfortable with that? I feel like I had a really long journey doing it, especially considering just like by nature, I beat myself up about things. It's just like, you know, that's just how I'm wired. So
Yeah.
it's like being really like happy and taking those things that like I might take for granted otherwise or seem like a symptom of this problem I have. Um, it's like, well, fuck. Um, you know, you really need to just look like you're saying, step back. I don't like fully, I don't know if you can tell, I'm really trying to like pick my language like tightly here because like I'm not trying to use like the wrong wording because like there's some wording that I hear and it just like gets me. I'm like, ugh.
Like what?
Like the stepping out. The stepping out bothers me because it's like, that's back to the cage again. Like I don't want to step out of the cage. You know, I don't want to totally step out of like myself. Um,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah. I think we're all wired to survive, and so it's like it's almost like this creature comfort of like being in the cage, like baby in the corner. Like it just like it puts you into a different zone. And I think there's a level of comfortability that people feel when things are consistent, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, that's the best thing for a kid, right? Isn't that like the best thing for a kid to grow up with consistency in
yeah,
his life, in her
yeah.
life?
And
Yeah.
for like, yeah, parenting, like just be consistent.
And I think that's where that whole adulting thing comes in, just to come back around there. It's like we're
Yeah,
getting to a point now in our world where like there's so much, like for those of us who are lucky enough to have been consistent up until this point, there is so much less consistency in our life, and
right.
maybe people that weren't consistent, that didn't have that consistency before, are already damaged in other ways, and now we're kind of like,
100%.
what's that?
100%.
Yeah,
Like,
they have to be. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it
And
also gives them
so,
like a shield.
yeah, and that inconsistency, like what I'm saying is like that inconsistency comes like whether you're ready for it or not, and
Yeah,
so like for
true.
people who had it earlier, like that's a huge disadvantage for them because it's a lot harder to deal with that before you've had time to like figure your shit out, and
Right.
that now that we're older, we don't have anything figured out, but like we're starting to try,
Yeah,
as opposed to like letting life happen to us, and now I feel like as we're getting older, we're trying to like, we're starting to get smarter, we're starting to see things like, 2 3 steps ahead, and
right.
like and that kind of thing. And that makes it hard to deal with these inconsistencies. It's like we're at school, we're back home, we're at school again, and all these different transitions. And there's so much change in like your freedom and your time and that kind of thing. It's like it can be hard. It can be really fucking hard for people, like, and me myself included, like, you know.
Bro, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, one thing, because like what you were just saying about like growing up, like things
Yeah.
have changed so much. Like that, I feel like has been very constant in my life. Like one, the fact that okay, we're like 2021 now. Like you can't be out in public acting like you're 19. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a big difference.
big time.
Like, yeah, that's one thing. Like, because like I would always just act like an idiot with like my friends out in public. Just okay, whatever, right? Like, we don't care. It's like okay, no, you gotta kind of like buy in a little bit. But yeah, it's also having a like a bigger memory bank. Like you can look back so many times now. I've been in a place so similar to now, and this is just experience, but it's like I remember so many aspects of that time that and those like multiple steps where I'm like each time I've thought back to, well, I feel like I'm on this growth track again. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm regressing or feeling not whole in a way.
Mm.
So I'm like, I'm working through what I need to work through right now to get to the place that I want to be at. Um, and every time I get to the next level or the next occurrence of it, it's like, well, I look back on that period with fondness because I'm like, well, I wish it wasn't as bad. This time, I wish it wasn't as bad as last time.
Right.
Like, because think about all like, I'm like, think about all those beautiful things that happened. But then it's like, okay, wait a second. And it's taken me like 3 or 4 like times or like episodes, whatever, to like get to that now where it's like you look back and you're like, oh, you are gonna love this in about a year. So
Yeah.
just be really cool with what's happening now because you're actually living in like the good old days. And it's like it's so hard to realize that every single time.
Be
Every
here now,
I
right?
mean, what?
Be here now.
Yes, yes. Yeah, dude, I think that's way more accurate than the good old days. It's literally just
Well, it's still the good old days. You know that song, Vienna by, um, who wrote the Piano Man?
Billy Joel.
Artist. Yeah, so Vienna is by Billy Joel, and that is exactly what this song is about, and that's what kicked off my little nostalgic spout there at the start of this thing, like right before we hopped on, because I saw this Instagram post with some 2020 highlights that this girl had strewn together of like her time in 2020 and just some beautiful moments, which was really dope because a lot of people are not choosing to focus on those moments this year. And the song in the background was Vienna, and my buddy Chris, one of my like longtime best friends ever, has this tattoo, Vienna, written right on his arm, and it's basically a song about like you don't know, but like you're kind of like in the good old days right now, like and that's basically the premise of the song. It's like that kind of deal. And like that's so funny that you bring that up because that is literally like I never really got that song until I literally like watched the video and listened to the lyrics. And Chris had showed me that a couple other times and I listened to it and I was like, eh. And this time it just totally clicked. It's funny how music will do that. Like it can take a while and then all of a sudden it's just like think and like I was like, whoa, like this is really, really dope. And like it just like it puts you into like an emotional state where you're like, wow, like what am I looking at right now that's like what am I taking advantage of? What am I not appreciating? Like and that whole thing.
Well, I mean, that's what good art does, right? Like,
Mhm.
how intelligent of an artist do you have to be to communicate that through the spoken word in a way that can still feel profound? Like,
It sobers us.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Delusions you out of like the ichor of reality or like your own perceived reality. Like, oh, I saw this awesome quote the other day. This is like a brief tangent, but um,
Hit me.
dude, thoughts are thoughts are the mind's scribbled notes about life and not life itself. I thought that was so fucking amazing. Like for somebody who always feels like you have those thoughts that are like, oh, like this sucked. Like you could have done more research on that before, like writing that paper. Like you could have
Yeah.
made that better. Like, did you work out hard enough? Did you run enough? Like, did you really eat clean? Like, I'm like,
Mm.
or did you hold yourself accountable today? Like, did you, yeah, all of those things, like realizing, and this, I guess this does go along with the good old days thing, realizing that you're acting in this way, because it's not just moments for me. I think back to the ways that I was able to react and interact during those periods more so, because I feel like that's like a huge, not just self-conscious thing, but also a problem that I'm trying to work on, or at least a perceived problem. Like, I feel like, um, you can apply that be here now and you're in the good old days and all of those things to, well, you might be feeling like a little bit depressed today, but like you're probably going to do some good things like because of it. I have noticed like part of depression is having, and this is going to upset some people for sure, but part of it is having a really like fucked up worldview that doesn't feed you, and it is a result of that thing, but it just means you have to work harder than the average person. We're all different and unique. Some people are born with a physical deformity or a shortcoming that prevents them from going far in sports or prevents them from developing like their physical like traits and
Right.
skills to like the top level. And some people, and that's a biological thing, but then other people
Right.
have a mental hamperance that like prevents them from doing all sorts of things with like mood or intelligence or anything like that. And it's just like, well, that's another like biological thing you have to work past. Like, but it's weird that like we don't really like make that an issue the same way we make like physical disability like an issue. Like, I mean, neither what I'm saying right now is not like, you know, pander to those people or like, oh, I recognize that you're different, but just like everybody would stop and open up a door for like somebody who is like on crutches or is like just in a wheelchair or like has no like bottom legs. But like
Right.
a lot of people want to say to people who maybe have that like mental biological like block, whatever it is, maybe it's like it could be a mental disorder or it could be like a learning disability.
Yeah.
We just want to say we don't want to help you. And it's the same across the board,
Yeah.
Oh, you have a reading like disability or like reading issue, like you have dyslexia, like kind of fuck you. We're gonna kind of help you, but like we don't really know what causes like dyslexia. We don't really know how to treat it that much. So it's like, and I'm sure I'm speaking falsities in some regard here because I'm sure they know a bit about it, but I just mean at a singular level, like schools aren't going to say, here's this comprehensive treatment. It's just,
Yeah.
well, here's some crutches, and
Yeah.
it's on everybody else to try and help them out. Like, well, just elevate them, just give them the tools.
Yeah, right. And that kind of plays into like our hubris and our like, like and on the contrary, our like humbleness, like, just
Yeah,
recognizing that sort of thing where you're like, okay, like, I have this, like my parents always said to me growing up, nobody's perfect. Like I would come home and complain about somebody that I thought was like, the worst ever,
right.
and they'd be like, well, nobody's perfect. We all have our problems. And it never really started hitting until I started living with other people. And I kind of like that. That's a real truth of this world. Like whether it be,
Yeah,
a mental disorder, a physical disability, a home problem, this, that, and the other thing, some sort of trauma that somebody's dealing with. It's like everybody has some baggage. Everybody has some shit. And if you think that you don't have shit, like,
yeah. Check again.
come
It's
on, try again. And I think that that's exactly like that's what you're talking about, Nate, when you're saying like, that's kind of like everyone's shit smells,
yeah,
and that's what makes us human. And it's like, don't don't think that like, that you're better or that, like it's just like everyone has something that's hindering them in some way, right? And that also is like, yeah, don't be, don't beat yourself down for that. Don't take that as an excuse. Like, be the person who says, like, um, you know, fuck it. I'm gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna do what I want to do anyways. And if you're the person who has less of those hindrances, if that's a word, then you better be ready to reach your hand out, and
Yes.
say, how can I help? Because if you don't, then it's like, you're not perfect either, and maybe that's why. Maybe because you're not willing to give a hand. Maybe the
Yeah.
only thing wrong with you, you're smart, you're able-bodied, and you're good looking. And the only thing wrong with you is that you're so arrogant that you won't help somebody who needs it,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
nobody's perfect. And that sounds so simple, but it's like it doesn't matter who you are. Like we're all human, and like don't think that you're above.
Right. The fix to that is just awareness, though, because nobody wants to be the person who doesn't help the other out of the cage. You can't
Right.
get out. You pretty much can't get out by yourself unless you just,
No shot.
unless you find a miracle way to escape. Unless you're a Ram Dass, how are you going to
Right.
escape? And very few of them come along. Very few of them get that far. If you want to truly escape, you want the best chance at it, and you care about people and want the same for all of them. Help others get out of the cage because it's going to help you. That's that selfish perspective that we talked about a while ago. Do it selfishly. Do it because you selfishly want everything to be better. It'll be better for you if you help others. That's
Yeah.
just what it is.
Agreed.
Dude, I feel like I don't want to get political here, but I know that worldview distinctly affects like my political alignment, and I feel fucking dirty and gross and bad about this. But I'm so anti the other alignment because I just know it's like, or I feel like, well, if I feel so passionately about this way, like, you know, it is a cognitive bias to some degree because it's like, oh, that destroys my worldview if I'm wrong about that, which is fucked up, and that's an issue I need to resolve. But I need to like also see, or I guess, sorry, miswording. I see that these people who maybe don't have that, like live for other people, help others out of the cage, if they're just trying to like get in buddy buddy with the guards, or like basically get to a higher position within the cage, they're vying for a shank or like heavier clothing so that they're safer within the cage. Like all of those things translate to like material possessions or wealth or positions of power. Yeah, it's why do you want to like try and make this cage like more comfortable? It's like contentment with your situation. And this is literally the plot of the Matrix, but I mean, I think, oh, well, I guess this whole thing kind of crumbles if we use the Matrix here, because they just had to get out, right? Like nobody was trying to like do good within them, you know.
But I
All right.
think, Nate, what I liked about what you said is what I really liked about what you said is it's still the cage. Like you could put some pillows, you could put a bed, you could put a house, you could get a car, you could get a pool, you get a hot tub. You're still living in that cage.
Right.
And like there's this John Bellion that I really like, this artist John Bellion. And he has this song I think called Fashion, and like the bridge, it just repeats over and over again. Might be gold, but that shit's still a chain. Right. So it's like,
Yeah. That's
like yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's like you're saying, the material possessions and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, yeah, it's gold. It's made out of like a very like precious metal, but it's still a chain. Like you're still wearing it around your neck. Like it's still something that like, used to symbol like the opposite of freedom and that kind of thing. And it's like, I think that's where we are in this cage. It's like we have these very few people that have escaped the cage, and then we have the majority, and the majority meaning most of the people on this earth, black, white, any religion, anything, we're all in this cage together. And um it's not about like decking out your corner of the cage. It's about like making sure everyone in the cage is there. It's making sure everyone's okay, and if we're all in the cage together, we might as well fucking extend a hand. And this is the other thing I was going to say really quick is like, it's not, when you extend your hand and you can help, it's not a hand down from your position. It's a hand across the table, you know.
Yeah.
Like, the second your hand is going below you, it's a big fuck you. It's like, no, you don't get it. You must be reaching from outside the cage. No, we're in the cage together, and you're reaching your hand out. And that's a humbleness, and that's sort of an awareness that you have to have. You know, that you're not better than somebody because you can help them. You're just in a position where you either worked for or you're lucky enough to be able to help.
Yeah, I think the people who know that implicitly are those people who like radiate love. Like, and that's a really hard thing to do because you have to love yourself totally and then be able to fully accept others. That, like, dude, I mean, I know I feel like I've like jerked off Christianity in this podcast a little bit, but like that's what Jesus was supposed to be. Again, the original spiritual movement. Like, it's, do, yo, okay. You know how through like hippie music, a lot of the people who came out of that in the 70s and like 80s, they made like Christian rock. Like that was the thing. Like and it all sprang from the hippie movement, or almost all of it. Like how many hippies who just tripped a ton of times, what if they came to that same realization of Christianity was the original, like, you know, hippie movement or like counterculture thing or just like awakeness thing. Like, because those are all probably weird kind of religious people, like not what you would assume a religious person would be.
Yeah, I listen to some Christian rock, dude. Skillet. You ever listen to Skillet?
Skillet's Christian rock.
Well, yeah, they don't swear.
Oh,
I know that that's like an advanced form of Christian. It's like Christian hard rock. I don't think it's like Christian rock where like they sing about Jesus, but like they do consider themselves a Christian rock band because they don't swear.
oh, damn! What the fuck? But Skillet's not even like, you know, hard rock. Like it's not like Big Hair. Skillet's like, I don't know. It's on the brink of like screamo. I know it's not like heavy metal, but
Well, Nate, it's probably like filters and filters and filters from the original Christian rock that you're talking about. Yeah,
true.
but that's where I mean, but that's a first. That's when I think of Christian rock. That's what I think of because like we are there are 3 or 4 filters between us and the original Christian rock.
That's true.
As we consume our media, like growing up.
Yeah, bro.
That's
By
a
the
good
way,
point.
I think we got the title for the episode. The Cage.
Yeah,
100%.
I was thinking that the whole time.
Yeah. Also, it's episode 10.
Word.
We're actually introing it halfway through this time.
Go.
Dude, this is progress. So yeah, episode 10, The Cage.
Yeah. EP10, but that's a big episode.
I know.
10 strong. That's 10 weeks. I mean, that's 10 weeks.
Yeah, dude, it feels like we haven't been doing it for like that long, but it also feels like we've been doing it longer because it's just become like a weekly ritual.
Yeah.
But it's like what sucks is I know how like young we are doing this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like feeling like a kindergartner with like the whole podcasting thing.
I do feel like that, but there is some excitement, you know, in that kind of thing. It's like it's like we're back in kindergarten at episode 10 and like we actually know we're in kindergarten this time.
Yeah.
Like when we were in kindergarten before, we didn't know that shit was kindergarten. We were like the shit. We thought we were like big swinging, you know, like, and now we're like, okay, like I'm looking up this fucking JRE episode and it's 1,490, and I'm like, that's a Jimmy Yang episode, by the way, which I fuck with that kid. He's an actor.
Yeah.
I was just listening to it today, but
Did you ever watch Silicon Valley?
Dude, I want to so bad. I don't have HBO.
Oh,
Is he fire in that?
so funny, dude.
Really?
Yeah, he's like, he plays like an entitled trust fund kid from like China who just fucks around. Like, but he's like a total fuck boy. It's really.
That's dope.
I haven't seen his stand up, but I bet it's good.
The reason that I watched the JRE is because I saw a stand up portion clip from TikTok. And I was like, well, if he's a stand-up, he must be on JRE at some point recently. And it was cool. I actually really liked it. Dude, let's do scheduled bathroom break halfway through the episode. I gotta take a leak.
Yeah. I gotta refill my water too. I'll grab a little snack.
Word. I'll get you in a minute. Got some
got-
big snacks.
Fruit salad,
Yummy, yummy.
some chips, water refill, set up.
Let's go, bro. I got just beer, man.
That's probably, dude. Weirdly enough, I was worried that I was going to be spacey. I feel like we're doing a good pace right now. Also, like, I don't know if it's just because like we're just on the same frequency right now, or if we just like blended our chemicals well. But like, I'm feeling in.
Dude, I'm feeling in it. I'm feeling like I feel like we're active members of the cage right now.
Yeah, yes. But I also just mean like, don't you feel like sometimes we hit our like conversational flow? Like off the podcast, it's not hard.
Right.
Because you're not worried like, oh, this is gonna be good. Like, am I using the right words? Like, am I not gonna offend? But
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you on the podcast, dude. Sometimes we just get into these zen moments. We're on the same exact wavelength.
no,
Yeah, yeah.
this shit's so good. I'm sorry. It's
Dude,
like
don't apologize. It's slapping.
my grandma murdered up. So what were we talking about? Like before the break.
I was saying some shit about just reaching your hand across the table and not down.
Oh yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, are we harping on the cage too much?
No, I don't think so, dude. I think we kind of like go off on a little journey and then we bring it back to the cage, which I think is good. I like it.
Yeah.
We don't have to continue to like we don't have to continue with the cage throughout, but
I just mean like I thought you said some shit like before we went on break that was like it was after the reaching the hand across the table. It got I only say that because I was like as I was leaving I was thinking about it. I got downstairs and I like distracted myself with the food and then I was like, oh fuck. I lost it. Whatever.
what was I forget what I was saying.
It comes back. If it comes back, it comes back.
Yeah, if it won't.
Yeah.
I
Dude,
feel you.
an interesting thing that I noticed since being home now, like I started just calling it the brown season because that's what it's I don't know what it's like down near you, but up here everything's brown right now. There's leaves on the ground still in some places, but there's no leaves left on trees. And the sky's normally gray. It's normally like kind of like shitty weather. It's like raining or it's like just mad cold. It's like the ground is always just a little bit wet. You can't really do anything. Like
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain today or this past like few weeks.
yeah, like it even even just like going on a hike, it's like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to wear like waterproof boots and like wash them afterwards.
Right.
Like it severely reduces the amount of stuff we can do. And like with quarantine, obviously, that's such a huge bummer because when we went back for the first quarantine, one big thing I noticed I was doing, because I wasn't really like going to a gym or anything, and I wasn't really like lifting at home the way I should be. And didn't have rugby, didn't have any kind of physical outlet. Longboarding was so amazing for making sure I'm present. I didn't realize how much of a meditation that was. It's like you're focusing so hard, especially on the penny board or just going on like unfamiliar terrain. It's like you're so in your body. You're feeling every little thing and responding to it. It's like you're getting into a flow state. And with longboarding or just skateboarding in general, I feel like it happens so quickly. Now, I'm not any good at like normal skateboarding. So I'm sure it's a little bit different because it's like, especially if you're just doing like street skating, you're like trying to learn tricks constantly.
Yeah.
Like that's a little bit different. But definitely like having that ability to do that during the beginning of last quarantine so priceless. And now not being able to have that kind of easy meditation, it's like, well, fuck.
It's hard, dude. I totally feel you, and I keep saying that to some of my buddies. Um, my buddy Ryan has been skating a ton, and he's pretty good. You know, it's kind of like I keep saying to him all the time, like I'll come out on my cruiser board and I'll just rip around, and exactly like you're saying, dude. There's like just such a level. I think it's probably partly I'm just more comfortable. It's not as hard,
Um,
but there's a fluidity on that thing. There's a level of like syncness. You see, like I'm one with the board more so because probably one, it's easier, and two, like I've skated high before, and like that
um,
shit is sick. Like, you know, like it's just different. You just feel like this kind of energy with the board, and you're like flowing, and I got my trucks nice and loose, so it's almost like land surfing. And I think for people who haven't really experienced that, it's hard to understand. But it's really cool what you said, how like there's just these certain instances in life when you are so locked in that like your brain just turns off. And it's not like meditation when you fight your brain to be silent. It's like your brain just is silent. Like, and like there's such a level of tranquility that comes with that. And like,
yeah.
I think what I really like about riding that cruiser board is like, it's just so relaxing for me. I'm moving with the board. Like the ground underneath me is moving faster and slower, and I have to work for it, or I have to, ride down the hill, this, that, and the other. And I think there's certain things like like Brian will probably more than like listen to this. And he probably won't love that I'm saying this, but he won't be pissed or anything. Like another version of that meditation is like we used to play ping pong like for like an hour straight or like 2 hours straight. And something about like just something about it, like the like either side of the board. And he's
Um,
like Ryan's good at everything he does, right? So like Ryan picks shit up really fast, and so he would always wreck me. And sometimes like he would play lefty, and like I wouldn't notice for like 5 or 6 points, and I'd be like, "Oh fuck you! Like you've been nailing me, and you're going lefty. Like I got no chance." But I eventually I got a little bit better. But Ryan's like one of those kids like has a lot going on, but like you know it's hard to get it out of him, and it's hard to like know what's going on in his head. And like that ping pong, it was a flow state, man. Like it was like I could talk to him, he could talk to me, and because like we were playing the game, it wasn't really about what we were talking about, but like it was such a beautiful form of meditation, such a give and take,
yeah.
like, and I would get stuff out of him, that I wouldn't be able to get out of him normally in a regular conversation that would feel unnatural, and like
Right.
certain things like that, dude. When you come across it, it's like, you get into this comfortability and you're like, wow, like this is dope. Like I would not have had this experience had there not been like a medium between me and that other person that like coerced that experience into existence.
Yeah, dude, 100%. Like, I I love those kinds of things because I don't even think it's an easy meditation. Like, it's not a way out. It's when you
No.
said not fighting your brain out, that's the perfect way to put that.
Yeah.
Like, it's exactly the flow state hypothesis. Like,
Yes.
just totally in that shit. Like, and that, I mean, obviously longboarding's a solitary activity, but that thing you're saying of like the give and take, you kind of feel that with like just the environment around you. Like I'm sure you feel that way even going around like just Springfield or doing it like back home. Like you feel a give and take with the environment. It's like you're
Yes.
having a conversation where you're looking out for every like pebble and like, oh,
Mm.
like raise my like center of gravity. I gotta move, whatever. Like I I think it's like fucked up that we're kind of robbed of it right now. And I don't mean robbed as in there's someone to blame, but purely because of the circumstances, a lot of people who would normally make use of that kind of thing, like me included, like it's so much harder to do it. It's like I'm kind of being a pussy about it because I could just go longboard and wear more layers. Like I could,
Mm.
but it's also just like it doesn't give you the same kind of joy as it would like in the summer when everything's alive and you know it's nice to be an isolated activity because of what you said, that conversation, like feels like you're having that with other living things when you're surrounded by them.
Yeah.
But when everything, the plants and the animals, are hibernating, it's like, okay, like,
Yeah, and here I am, like, and I'm smart enough to not have to do that, and now I'm facing the repercussions of existing in a world that's not awake right now, and I think that's what winter really is for a lot of people, especially, like our climate is pretty reasonable compared to other people's, and even still we still face that to a certain degree. And yeah, I think I totally hear you on that, and I think that that's definitely going to be, I mean, just to anyone who is experiencing like winter right now, which is probably everyone in some degree, like it's hard. Like it's hard to experience winter when everything else in the world is going great. Like, and now we're in COVID and it's harder to see people responsibly and like my parents bought like a little space heater for the back porch so that they can eat outside and luckily too, like it has been warm, almost concerningly warm. But there's been a shit ton of rain, and it's like fuck, like, ground's wet, can't skate. Like
right.
don't
Yeah.
want to go for a run right now. It's boring. Like and that and like you're saying, dude, like 100% you get around that, but it's like, yeah, it is. It
It
is
just adds another level. Yeah. It's a bummer.
yeah.
I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do. This is gonna be the long winter. Like that, I mean, it's hard enough now. It's like, okay, yeah, the ground's wet. Like,
Yeah.
luckily, when it's snowing, it's gonna add a few extra things. I'm so excited. Dude, I'm praying to God that ski mountains open up. If they find a way to do their lodges smart, I'll lose my mind. I'll pay whatever price. I don't care.
Well, here's how they do it. They basically move their rental um station outside and they don't open the lodge. And everyone just either, people who really ski just come in with their skis and boots and go ski, and then, that's pretty much it, and then people who have to rent, if they could rent outside and get right on their skis and go up on the mountain, like make a hot dog stand, make this and that, like
Yeah.
it is going to be hard. And dude, something that's like really bums me out is I often ski up in my buddy's got a place like just north or just south of North Conway, which is like has a bunch of ski areas around it in New Hampshire. And all these mountains that everyone loves in New Hampshire are getting bought up by these big corporations from out west because there's so little snow. Yeah, this is such a bummer. There's so little snow right now that like the mountains, like the family mountains, the smaller mountains aren't profiting enough to continue and they have to sell out. And so there's these massive companies from out west that come and buy them up, and then like it's not that same family feel. There's no more like like days that are family bands based or like live music, that kind of like the events, the this, the that, like that, all those nuances are disappearing from the mountains, and it's just like they need some snow. I mean, they
Yeah.
really are suffering up there.
That's so sad. I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
snow and also with COVID now, a lot of people are going to want to go in.
Right.
But that's okay. So I've been bringing up my sister a bit, but she's going to school like to major in like it's some kind of climate degree, like it has to do with environmental science.
Yeah.
But she was talking about the environment or yeah, environment resilient class, which is this like percentage of the population in terms of businesses, it's above a certain level of profitability. So it encompasses all of those like large ski corporations or like big businesses in other areas. But it also like talks about certain people. So it's like basically anybody who's upper middle class and above, they're a climate resilient class. We're going to be able to move further inland when like the sea
Ooh.
level rise, when there's more tropical storms, which there has been, more hurricanes, which there has been, like um, you know, when there's more earthquakes in California, those people who are climate resilient can move elsewhere. Um, and it's this fucked up thing that's happening in so many different sectors in our country. And that business sector is just one of them where that's not a climate resilient company, the little mom and pop like
Yeah.
him. they're not climate resilient because they can't afford to just open up another mountain somewhere else or go, okay, well, we'll weather this like 1 year of product product of climate change, excuse me, like variation in our environment. So like
Yeah.
our business model is going to have to change a little bit. Um, but yeah, dude, the people who can't, it's like it's so fucked up because I mean, a lot of climate change is caused by the rich or very wealthy corporations that are profiting off of unethical practices. So it's like, okay, now you're going to go ahead and be the only ones that are going to weather the storm. Really? Everybody else pays for your mistake except you. It's crazy.
Right. Wow. And that's kind of the way it always works.
But everybody should be equally upset about this. If we all want to be in the like, if we're all going to help each other out of the cage, this is an essential part of it. There are going to be some people that can never get out of the cage. Uh, think about it like poverty. There's some people who can just never escape it. They're not going to get the opportunities in this life, no matter how hard they work. Their circumstances, their environment, everything has worked together to just make it like an almost impossible situation. Um, not that if they lived that same life 1,000 other times, they couldn't succeed. It's only that in this one, they didn't get the opportunity when they needed it, or weren't in a position to like capitalize on it when it happened. Like we need to make sure that those people, both the people in the cage and the literal like people who haven't made it in this life and are in a climate resilient class, we need to look out for them. Everybody should be equally aware and trying to like reach that hand across the table. Like this is a very important issue. These companies need to pay for these things. We need to be taking care of the people that just aren't going to be able to get out of the cage right now. Like let's just try and make it better for everybody because a lot like, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah.
No, I definitely know what you mean, dude. I think it's scary when you start hearing things like, Trump is dismantling funding for national parks, that kind of thing. Like, that's one of my biggest gripes, amongst many with that fucking douchebag. Just like that kind of stuff. It just has like this ripple effect where it's like not only are like the families who usually go to these little ski mountains affected negatively by the fact that it's been, a corporate, um basically like the corporation consumes that mountain, and then like
Right.
all of the frills are gone. Like it's not just that, it's like the company that started it, the family that started it, the employees that it hired, like those people might still be employed, but like with what benefits, with what, it's like this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, all right, like,
Also, it's also the idea behind it. Like
yeah.
that's so important. Like, sorry, I cut you off like
Hmm.
halfway through that thought. Dude, I've been bad about that this pod. I feel like I've just been like, you're saying shit and it's just like sparking like connections in my brain. I'm like, oh,
Well, this is the thing. I would rather you cut me off than forget something, because I do that too, where you say something and then like, later on, I'm like, it's gone. Like tell me what you're thinking. Like, that's fine. Like, don't worry about that. But yeah, and I think too, the other thing that I was gonna say is like, it just leads to like this sort of weird position that we're all in now, where it's like, okay, like, like this is the way the world is turning, and like, it's just dark. It's a dark
yeah,
lens, you know.
well, that's just how it is. Like, but it only is that way if everybody agrees that's how it is.
Yeah.
Right? We perceive and make our own reality.
Mm.
Everything that's
Well,
going on right now is in one level of construction. We can just fix that.
and
Now, it's not going to be an easy fix, but in the grand scheme of things, it's so easy and so fast.
yes, don't you
Like,
think that like
oh no,
your contact get fucked up?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry.
You want to finish your thought up, or you want me to go?
Oh, the contact got me.
You're good. You said like, what did you just say? Like, you think you can fix it, so we fix it, or something like that?
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not, it's very quick and it's very easy to fix. It's just in the short term that it seems daunting.
But okay, let's talk about this. Let's go into this really quick.
Yeah.
This is something that came up with Carolyn and I that I think is really dope. This conversation we had, because I think both Carolyn and I were like, I think we were just like, our perception of like what we thought about this topic was slightly altered in our conversation. That's what I love about talking to her is that like Carolyn does this thing that like I wish everyone would do. All right, I'll give an example.
Yeah.
I'm such a douchebag for this. Such a douchebag for this. And I know it. Like, sometimes you just say some shit you wish you didn't say. And I'm totally gonna like put myself on the spot here. Like, Carolyn had been working super hard on this um no man's land video, right? So she kept posting it up on her story. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
It working for the outing club. She's a e-board member of her outing club at UMass, which is a big deal. It's fucking dope. And she was working on promoting this video that was thrown together, and it was a film festival edit of a bunch of different women, and especially women of color, in the outdoors.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking fascinating, right? Really, really well done. I watched it with all my roommates at school. My family watched it. She did a fucking fantastic job of um, just like promoting it, that whole thing, right? Tons of people watched it. And I just said such a dick thing. Like I literally, it was like, I don't know what it was, why I said this, but I was with her the morning, like Thursday morning, because like exactly you said, like I go over there Wednesday night, Thursday morning I leave, and I was like, it's like a no man's land, right? So it's like about women in the outdoors. And I was like, well, like this isn't just gonna like hate on men, right? And I was just like, right, and right, that's a dick thing to say. And she literally, this is what I'm saying. She so seamlessly, without getting angry, she just goes, just because it's about women doesn't mean it's about hating on men. And
Right.
I was like, yeah, first of all, 100% you're right. Second of all, that's not even how I think about things. So I don't know why I just said that out loud.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of ability. And that's what I love about talking to her. That kind of ability where you can just be like, no, I'm not going to get mad about this. I'm just going to point it out. Like, let me just, because I care about this person, like, let me just point it out and hopefully he gets it. And I did 100%. And I feel like such a prick about it, saying that. And, and so it's that kind of thing. But Karen and I were talking about this in the car. Now, I'm sorry, this is a tangent.
No, no, no. Go.
We were talking about like she was talking about how much harder it is to be a woman in the society than a man. And I was talking about how it just doesn't help to think that way. And not that you should ignore it, but I was just saying
Right.
like you shouldn't think that way, like because that just puts you at a disadvantage. And she was like, yeah, but like don't you think it's important, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of went back and forth. And then the subject kind of moved on. And then we came back to it because I was thinking about it in my head. Usually I need to take a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, if you had a daughter, wouldn't you want to just continuously build her up and convince her that she had the world in her hands?
Right.
Instead of telling her that the world was against her, right? And so like
Wow.
that was kind of like my point. And she was like, well, yeah, of course, but like ignoring that reality is also still really just as damaging as telling her that the world is out to get her. So it's like kind of like this weird thing where like we both came to the same conclusion with like an opposing original viewpoint where it's like, okay, yeah, like no, we do need to address and correct. But and this is a long way back to what you said about like if you want to fix it, just fix it. Like at the same time, like if you tell your 5-year-old daughter that she's never going to be shit because the world is out to get her, then she's never going to be shit because you told her that. And like, that's where I'm coming from. And it's like that super delicate balance of being like, yeah, but like, also, like, you can't be ignorant enough to just ignore the struggles that women deal with, in
Right.
this world. So it's like, it's a hard conversation to have.
It
But
is. It
it's
is.
important.
dude, Carolyn, like it sounds like she handled that in a way that everybody should handle disagreements like this.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, approaching it from a place of like love and understanding. Like
Mm,
that's so dope. Also, like the
yeah.
fact that like you can be in a relationship with somebody like that, that is so big for me. Like that is like the number one thing for communication, right?
Yeah.
Like that's beautiful. But I'm trying to say like I think it's not so much a balance because I don't think like in most cases, like the whole thing about, women being told that they're shit. Do you think that maybe happens outside of the home too? Like it's not just your environment that
Of
is,
course.
yeah, not just your nuclear environment. Like you will hear shit. Like obviously kids are mean. Like growing up, there's always gender discrimination between the two, but it's definitely more intense from guy to girl. It's fucked up, but like we're all animals at that stage. We're really just wolves with like speech. It's
So
crazy.
cool.
Like, yeah, they're gonna hear it a bunch of times, like the workplace, whatever. So I totally, totally, totally get what you're saying. And yeah, like I think it just goes hand in hand. Like I'm not I'm not trying to like I'm not disagreeing about the like don't show um don't show them that there is this harsh reality. Um, I'm just saying, like, I'm pretty sure the two just exist. They exist in full. Like, they don't occupy like the same slot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because think you're aware that like there's a ton of just like gaps between genders. Like, I mean, and if you really want to talk about like gaps in gender rights, like it's just between like male and female, like, but then you have any other gender, it's like, well, that like the rights, respect, or equality for that is so much lower than it is between just male and female.
Right.
Like, I mean, not to digress, but like you've heard so many people criticizing like this whole like the whole recent like gender equality movement for having like white women hop on board and say, well, we're a problem too. It's like, yeah, you are, but it's like you're not as big you're not as big of a disadvantage as all these other people are. Which is not to say like, it's not valid. It's not, but it's I don't know. I guess it's kind of to say like, we do have a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think like if as many women as possible need to, and I think they do, like look at it in a way where it's like, okay, we're so aware of this and this affects us implicitly, so we're going to use that like negative energy that I was talking about before, like weaponizing it, like that anger or that passion about that thing. Like, how is this possible? Like weaponizing it so it's like, all right, now we can change this thing. Like,
Mm. It's not ignorance, it's understanding that's going to get you there.
yeah, yeah,
You're not,
yeah,
you're not ignorant to the fact that that's the reality.
yeah,
You understand it, and then that's going to help you to drive forward. I
right,
think I think that goes with everything, and that's not just women, but we kind of like that's kind of like what we were talking about, which is why I was saying like if I ever had a daughter, I would never want her to get the message from me because the message that you give as a parent is like at the highest standard to that kid, usually, unless you're like a shitbag and they don't respect your opinion at all. But
yeah,
even if you are a shitbag, usually kids will respect your opinion if they're your kid. And that's fucked up, but that's the way it is. And,
yeah,
so it's like that kind of thing. It's like
yeah,
I would just want to just hammer on the positivity and the relentlessness and that, that pursuit of happiness, that kind of thing that like
right,
it's possible if you are unrelentingly positive or unrelenting, even unrelentingly persistent, whether you're positive or negative in that, endeavor. But something I think I sent it to you. I don't know if I did. Something that I saw in the news. I like Bill Burr. I think he's a funny comedian. I
yeah,
fuck- And do you like him or do you not fuck with him?
Yeah, no, I fuck with Bill Burr.
Yeah, Bill Burr's funny as fuck. And
He sounds like an old uncle at like every family gathering. It's
his voice is gas. It's good to listen to. He's funny as hell. And he did a skit on SNL that was super edgy. And
oh yeah, you sent that to me.
yeah, I don't really fuck with SNL. I don't watch it enough to give you my honest and true opinion on it, but I just feel like its time has passed and like I've seen funny SNL clips from,
Yeah,
years before, and I just feel like since we've really been like around to think about it, I don't think that SNL is that funny, honestly. But that's just my take. That's my hot take. I think it's hot garbage and it used to be amazing. But
yeah, yeah. Well, as anything that gets corporatized, it just kind of falls apart after a while. But also, they fucking
it's
down, dude. My boy Kyle Mooney gets no scripts, like actually on live, and
well,
he's
SNL is
so fucking funny. Like,
SNL is weird like that too, because all those people are competing with each other to get their show on
yeah,
air. Like
yeah,
everyone writes a script and then they act it out, and then like people that run the show decide what's funny enough. So that's weird in itself. But
it's gross because it's also just pandering to like whatever's popular or brandable.
and it's like what, two, three people on the show get to decide what's funniest, but you hired me and you don't think I'm funny enough. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's a weird culture to create in your company, I think. But Bill Burr went on the show and he was like, yeah, like he basically said what you were saying, like white women like needed to like sit down and get their talking to. Like don't fucking step up and he was literally like white women came up and like stole the stage on this whole fucking like Black Lives Matter and like like minority movement, and they were like, yeah, my life sucks too. And it's like, yeah, maybe like there's some real things to consider here, but it's like, no, like don't steal the spotlight from people that have been oppressed like
Well,
unrelentingly. Like not that women haven't been, but it just was, that's why it was controversial, right? Because
yeah.
people were like, well, women have been oppressed. And like, okay, sure, but it's like, he was like, I just never seen people just
It's white women specifically. Like,
right. And he says like he says something like white women jumped over the fence of blatant oppression or
yeah,
discrimination and just like said like, yeah, me too,
yeah.
and that's kind of that. I don't know, it's funny, it was controversial. I think he's funny for it. I think you should be able to joke about stuff like that, because if you can't joke about shit, then you know
Right. What's
you're not
up? Like,
tolerant
yeah. I
enough.
mean, it's
Just an interesting take.
it's a hot ass take, but
Mm-hmm.
also kind of right because it is like, you know, you, yeah. It's looking into how he's saying it, because if you
Right.
just take it at face value, it's easy to go, okay, well, look, women have been like affected by all these things, and this is still an injustice that needs to get fixed. Of course it is. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying that it's not an injustice that needs to get fixed. He's just saying, oh, guess what? White privilege is such a thing that like you are still better off than even the more privileged sex in this like ethnicity or race
Right.
or whatever, whatever identification of the oppressed person. It's like you're still better off than them, just as a whole. Like
Mm.
you have so much more inherent privilege or just better place because of like past circumstances that were like systemic, like oppressive tools at the time, like and still kind of are. Like it's like, who are you? Like,
Mm.
what? Why are you trying to like escape blame? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I just thought through that live because as like we were talking about it, and I remember the first time I was like, oh, he just kind of hates women. But I realized that in like live talk, like, oh, that's actually like really wise.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's
I like
interesting,
that. I mean,
dude. It's interesting how you take something in and you have this opinion of it, right? And then later down the line, I think this is something I really get out of this podcast is like I'll say something to you that I think is true, or you'll say something to me that you think is like, the truth. And then you'll say something like, like you kind of just said about that made me think of this Bill Burr thing. And then I'm like, yeah, like it's kind of like how Bill Burr said, like, white women need to like sit down and take their talking to, just like everyone else deserves to. And then
Right.
you're kind of like, oh, like that does relate to what I was just saying, and it's like this weird kind of check thing that like, were we not to have this 2-hour conversation, we might not
Yeah.
have come to that realization that like what you said before, whether you still believe it to be true or not, like has its critiques and has its like weaknesses, and like it kind of like it gives you that perspective to go back and be like, okay, like I'm not always fucking like right about everything. Like I know I do that all the time with you. Like you'll say something and I'll be like, or if you don't have to say it, like you'll make a face that I can read and I'll be like, yeah, you're you're right. Like, and that's like part of my
Yeah.
whole thing, right? And that's important to be able to, I feel lucky to have somebody that I can bounce this kind of thing off of and kind of like dissect things,
Dude, yeah. I mean, that's like we always talk about how this is like therapy in some respect. It's like
Big time.
it's thought processing therapy
Big time.
because like, yeah, I think we're like you'd say you're a self-assured person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like very easy to confirm your own way of like looking at things. And
Yeah.
I do that shit all the time. Like I'll just arrive at a conclusion. I'm like, oh, this is how it is now. And it's like you need that person that will challenge you, you
Mm.
know, like, or just say like, oh, here's an interesting perspective from the way that you think. So you're going to be able to like just cling on to it. Like, oh yeah, that just makes sense. And it's like, oh, that one didn't hit me that time.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get it when I was originally looking at this. Yeah. Yeah. It's
It
sick.
takes it takes so much practice in the way that like it's like you shoot an arrow at a target, right? And over again, like you could tell me like you're worried about the people who aren't being represented, right? That I remember, and I forget which podcast it was in. I said something like, somewhat ignorant, like it just doesn't matter that much, and you were like, well, maybe not to you, but the people who are it's affecting, it matters to a lot, and they have less of a voice, and it's like I've heard you say that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before then. But like in that moment you hit the bullseye. Like you drew the bow back and then bang and it lined up for me, and that's the kind of patience that I think you have to have with people, right? It's like, listen,
Yeah.
like you might not get it the first time or the third.
I was just about to say that, like, for the arrow analogy, beautiful. Because so I'm not going to get specific, but I know somebody who has an issue with like one of their parents, and there's been like a lot of problems with like communication and just like how do they really like get along and everything.
Right.
And like that is one of those things. Like you
Yeah.
need to have. I was trying to make the point that you need a lot of people around that parent, like telling them this thing, because eventually one of those things will finally get through. It's like that threshold where you have enough people it's a combination of people you care about and people whose opinions you value, and that should be a pretty overlapping Venn diagram. But like once you get enough of those, you go, okay, now the change has to be made. Like
Yeah.
just so hard to do it by yourself.
It is, and it's not really like a bullseye. It's like you're shooting the arrow at the person, and it's the kink in the armor.
Mm,
Like
yeah. Oh, it's the perfect like little capstone that takes down the wall.
yes,
That's sick,
it's the
dude.
it's the it's the it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's that one thing that gets under your skin, right, to the point where you're like, oh my God, like all my ego has been blocking these arrows, just like a fucking Jedi master, like fuck you. And then all of a sudden, like, like the dark side takes over and you're like, oh my God. And you see something you never saw before. And I think that's all you can really ask from the people that you love, to allow themselves to show you their like Achilles tendon, to show you something that's like their weakness, that they know deep down that it's hindering them. It's blocking them from being who they are. It's the
Yeah.
it's the walls, it's the bars of the cage.
Yes. Hell, that was it. What's blocking who they are? It's not just the weakness. It's like your weakness is being totally yourself and open with somebody. If you can just like authentically exist, and people say that so much, just be yourself. Like, yeah, of course. But it's like, how do you do that? It's like eliminate all those things you have fears about. Are you worried that are you worried that somebody's going to make fun of an interest that you have? Why? It brings you joy. Are you worried that somebody's going to make fun of the way you dress? It's like, well, do you look in the mirror and smile? Great.
Right.
Like all of those things. It's very, very hard to actually like get to the level where you feel like you can take your walls down around like strangers, but to get to the level where you can take your walls down around people you love and care about and already can have close connections with, here's what you do. You talk to them openly about those kinds of things. I mean, you may not think that you can do that, but I promise anybody who's listening, like, if you think there might even be the possibility, or like just somebody you feel like you're like close enough to, maybe you can just talk to them, and you'll be surprised by the amount of people that are going to be like, oh yeah, I want to hear this. Like, I want to be here for you. Like, that will help so many people bring down those proverbial walls and say, oh, like, I no longer need this for protection, because it's conditioning, whether first person or second person. If you see enough, or third person, I guess, if you see enough people go through shit, you're going to be like, well, now I have to do this. But if you experience enough of those beautiful moments where you are open, then it's like, you're like, well, I don't really need this wall anymore. We've talked so much about neuroplasticity, what what you think about, what you tend to toward builds itself up and builds itself up. Dude, maybe the wall is a legitimate like construct within the brain. And I don't mean a physical wall, but I mean like a legitimate like thought construct, almost like a firewall for software. Like, it could literally just be, well, you're building that up and giving it more data, more power the more you listen to it.
That's dope.
Like that, we just gotta, maybe it's not just breaking down the ego. Like, maybe it's just the wall, because you kind of need the ego to a degree to still stay in the cage and help people, but to just break down the wall, I mean, that could really help. Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I know exactly what you're saying, dude. Like, it's not, you don't need to surrender, you don't need to surrender the thing that makes you human.
right. Yes.
You just need to give enough, right? You just need to give enough that allows you to like see the humanity of others.
Yeah. Here's another. I've been struggling with this whole, how much do I want to distance myself from the ego thing recently? Like, another thing that my ridiculously intelligent girlfriend Callie said, she goes, no, it's not it's not that you want to distance yourself from the ego, it's that you need to feel your emotions more. Because I was like, well, a dog only feels like 4 emotions. And she was like, yeah, and we feel what, like 30? Like, how many different ones? What makes us human is feeling those emotions more.
Right.
What makes us good humans is just being able to like go, okay, I felt that,
It's meditation. It's meditation within the cage as opposed to anxiety within the cage, right? It's like knowing that you're there and accepting it and prospering in that zone of being a human.
Yes.
And running through those emotions and being able to process them, with a sense of acceptance.
Yeah. Acceptance and understanding. Dude, that is 100% the hardest thing to do in like this life.
So fucking hard.
But if you can get there, it's so much better long term.
Mm.
I can't help but so I was writing a paper for my abnormal psychology class today. We were talking about treatment options for a certain mental health disorder that we've just been looking into the whole semester. And I was like looking through like part of like the textbook related to it, because I was like, all right, I need to refresh it. So I was just reading through it. And this one part said, you know, like psychiatric like interventions, like any like benzodiazepines. I'm doing it on generalized anxiety just to like get a better understanding of it. Um, they prescribe benzodiazepines to people, which just like numb you out. If you're old, it'll like make you fall over and like seize up and stuff. Like it fucks you up. I mean, it's a benzo. It's what like people use to like party. Like
Yeah.
it just numbs you. You feel nothing. You have no kind of inhibition. So, or well, for somebody with anxiety, it just brings you to normal. Um, but that is only good in like the short term. What's beneficial is the long term, like, all right, let's get to the root of this issue, you
Yeah.
know? So that feeling all of your emotions, like that is the key to it, I think, because you're feeling all those things, you're understanding all of them. Once you work all of those out, guess what? You never have to take the benzos, you're just good. You're like, well,
Right.
I'm upset. And this isn't going to be an issue that's going to bother me ever again. Dude, I think I've been getting like obsessed with the idea of getting to that place like right now. I feel like I need to be there already. Isn't that vicious? I know that that's impacting the actual journey. I
I
want
don't
so
know.
badly to be at the destination.
I don't know, Nate, because I know, like I was saying earlier, that there's just like this relentless um force that drives change. And I think, the destination, maybe you shouldn't be worried about getting there. Maybe that's not, you know, maybe it's not gonna ever be there. Maybe you're always gonna be this much closer to being there, and it might get to the point where you understand that you are in control of it, but it's still present, right? And it's like that's the kind of thing when you're working through something as a person, like like you're on the journey, right? Like
Right.
you're not. I don't know. I feel like there's potential that you might just be like, like you might always feel this tiny little tinge of um you know, doubt or anxiety or this, that, and the other. But
Yeah,
like
I
if
still have more
it's
left to go too. Yeah.
yeah, if it's so far, but it could be so far in the back of your head that like it's like this analogy. I was smoking this summer, mad anxious, didn't know what was going on with the world, didn't pay attention. I chose to be blissfully unaware, and it fucked me up super bad. Fucked me up super bad. Now when I smoke, I have this kind of level of control where like when I'm going into a bad place, I just go, nah, you don't have to go there. Whereas before I completely succumbed to that place. Maybe that's what it's gonna be like.
Huh.
Like that place is still there, but you're like, I'm not going.
Right. Yeah.
You
Well,
think?
I don't I don't I don't know. I don't know. Because getting to that level, I feel like, we all obviously like react differently to things. Like
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm gonna get to that level, which I know I'm at for nothing right now, it's just like if I'm gonna get to that level of being able to have that emotion and be cool with it, even happiness, not let it make you go like manic, you know? But it's easy with happiness to you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fucking seize this. And then it's just like, oh, I just burned myself out. Like taking all of those emotions in, it's gonna take a long time to get to a level. But
Mm.
yeah, that like putting it beside and just processing it, not being like, oh, this is just affecting me wholly. Maybe that's what's gonna be the end. But in that process, like I'm saying, the process of getting to that, um, I'm saying like the feeling, the almost the anxiety that I'm not there already, and just
Mm.
the
Oh,
feeling always on the treadmill. You know what I mean?
I
Like
see what you're saying. Yes, yes. I see what you're saying.
it's like I have this perfectionist like
Mm.
mindset about things, and I don't.
Yeah.
I also have like when I think about a problem, and this is how I've been with every passion. Once it's like I have a problem in my head, that problem has to get solved. When I was first getting into lifting, it was like, well, I need to hit a 225 bench. I created an arbitrary problem that my insecurities just doubled down on. So I just did everything I could to get to like a 225. But then the problem was I got there and it ruined me. Then I was like, oh, I'm not going to lift for a while. And I didn't. And it killed like my drive for it.
Yeah.
Um, So that was like the benzo solution, you know? That was like, all right, I'll create this
Mm.
small little thing. So it's like now I know I'm never gonna fully be satisfied until I fully get there. But it's because I've just created a problem that I know needs to be solved. And I'm really not comfortable moving on from it until it's done,
Mm.
which it does suck, but I feel like it's given me the same level of like drive that I had in lifting. Like I'm single-minded about it. Like I'm like, this needs to get done. Like I'm always thinking about it. I'm always like looking stuff up about it. Like, but then it's like, what does that leave for other things?
Right.
Or just like, what is that doing to my mental health in the process? Yeah,
Right. Right.
it sucks. It feels like a vicious cycle because it's like, in order to be comfortable with it, you need to get to that stage. Or perhaps I'm putting that final destination on the pedestal, and maybe I don't realize that I'm arriving in, you know, happy town, sad town, whatever town, as I make it to the final city of enlightenment.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think that that's kind of what I was saying before. It's like, yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And like the lifting thing is real for me too. Like I think we're kind of on the same page with that. Um, it's interesting because my goals for lifting are different. Like I don't really care how much I can lift. My kind of thing is like looking like good. That's my thing. Like, and
What's
that's
with consistency though? Like you're like,
well,
I
yeah, it's
yeah,
consistency and my end goal, my destination. Like you're saying, your destination is benching 225. Like, the other day I was lifting heavy and I was like, wow, I'm stronger than I thought I was. And I was like, why is that? Like, why don't I lift heavy more? And it's kind of like, well, I know that like the hypertrophy shit is in the reps, and like I don't really care how much I can lift. I just want to look big.
yeah,
Which is, two of the same thing. Like it's looking like you can lift a lot in the gym, or like by lifting a lot in the gym, or just looking good, in your physique and that kind of thing. It's like it's the
yeah.
same destination with just a different route of getting there. But um
Dude, let me
it's like it just makes you
where
think, like, why do I want to do that? Why are my goals this way?
yeah, why are well, like why do you feel like because I know where you've been with the working out for well, at least I think I for a while, like all of my freshman year, I worked out for like an aesthetics. I mean,
Right.
it got to strength after a while, but for a lot, it was like obsessively checking in the mirror. Like you get
Yeah.
pumped, you're like, oh, I better like, you know, does everything look right? Like, did I do that the right way? Like
Mm,
the crazy obsessive like thing about it, it's like that's coming from a deep place of insecurity. And
right.
I figured out at the time I was insecure because it was like, well, I like to be a controller, I like to be able to control my situations. I like to be able to feel in control of like myself, unless I'm like obviously trying to lose control. Like, you know, I'm not in a like if I'm gonna like go get drunk, it's like, all right, I'm choosing to lose control here. So it's like
Right. Right.
control
Right. 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 Right.
all those things. Um, so lifting was almost a thing where it's like I'm controlling how others perceive me, and I'm also
Mm,
controlling how, like, I could physically control things better, like
yeah.
that's where like I came from that. Like, where do you think your drive for doing it for aesthetics like comes from?
It
Because
it's certainly an insecurity, 100%. Um, like the other day, I texted in a group chat with a couple of my buddies, Ryan and my younger brother Alden, and his best friend Jack, who's like also a really, really good close friend of mine. And I sent in this picture of this YouTuber who fishes, and he used to be a Navy SEAL.
yeah,
Badass dude, badass dude. He was a Navy SEAL sniper. And I sent in a picture of him and his like new girlfriend. He was like recently divorced, and he's
yeah,
got this like badass bitch, like, obviously like super hot. And like I sent the picture in, and the first thing I said was like, look at Rob. Like, I can't believe he looks that good. And he's like completely shredded out, six pack, like completely chiseled, like looks like a movie star. And my buddy Ryan was like, yeah, of course that's what you said. Like, of course you aren't looking at the chick with like the big tits. Like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm looking at Rob, and that completely embodies like my insecurities too. Like, I'm certainly insecure about that kind of thing. And I think for me, something I realized with lifting was I did come to this realization, but it didn't really fix anything. Was that I the reason that I don't like lifting, or I don't have this like, even though I can keep a consistent routine, I never feel like I'm in the habit of going to the gym because the reason that I'm lifting is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not lifting for the right reason. I'm not lifting for myself. I'm lifting for other people. And that is a completely unsustainable um why, and your why is like the most important thing. And when you do anything, and it's like that why is so unsustainable. That why is not for me. That's not because I want to live longer. That's not because I want to be healthier. I want to be, this, that, and the other thing. It's like because I know how I look when I'm out, and I've always been insecure about that. And that's probably my biggest insecurity. And like that doesn't really like bother me to say that, but like um the fact that it's there, it's like, okay, I know that that's a problem, but like that's still the reason I lift. That's still the reason I lift. And it's kind of morphing slowly, which is really beautiful. This journey that I'm on right now with the gym, it's like I'm slowly like doing it for myself more and more every time I work out, which is amazing. And like, it's kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel, to be honest.
Right.
But it's been a long since senior year of high school, and we're juniors now. Like
Yeah, but dude,
it's been a
everybody,
long time.
like you saying that, so many people are gonna relate to that. Like so many people have been there. Like
Yeah.
for me, I was super skinny in like high school, so I was like, oh, I gotta put some fucking like mass on myself because fuck,
Mhm.
like you know, it's crazy. Like somebody can make like an offhand like just comment in like a locker room, and then you go, oh,
Yeah.
like you're a child, so you carry that with you. Like
Mm.
you're not impressionable as like a high schooler, like you are. Like even now, like we're gonna stop being impressionable like this once we're kind of set in our ways in like the 30s and when we're in our 30s and stuff. But um like doing it for aesthetics, like you know you are a little bit doing it for yourself, but yeah, you're right. Once you get to, because it almost has to be a goal with like aesthetics, like once you get to that level, it's like, okay, what is going to keep you going? And like that thing you're saying about not being able to get into the like stride with the gym, like dude, I feel that. Like do it strength instead, you're just like holy shit. Like then it's like something you can just take pride in instead of it being like a guilt thing. It's like, it's still a little bit fueled by your ego and like self-consciousness, but now it's like, okay, it's that light at the end of the tunnel. It's okay.
It's
Yeah, fuck, like we're gonna move past that other things and this is still
mm.
gonna be here. Like
You show up because the rest of your day is going to be easier afterwards, right?
yeah,
Instead of showing up because someday I'll look like this when I don't have a pump,
yeah, yes, yeah. it's
right?
it's like penance. It feels like penance. It's crazy, and that's a weird tendency we have as humans. Going back to like Christianity, that's a huge that's a huge tent pole of theirs, right?
Yeah.
Like penance, just like repent for your sins, like,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. Like, I mean, we've talked about this before about how distant people get from the original message of things. Like,
Yeah.
especially a hippie movement as old as that, it might have started with like there are penances, and you need to be aware of them, and you need to be aware of these seven sins because they're things that you should forgive yourself for.
Right.
And that has all love. This was the original message. Jesus saw these people who had these sins in them, and he healed them of them. He was
Mm.
he was a therapist. Like, I mean,
Right.
or
Right.
spiritual advisor, like just fixing people or well, more so helping them to fix themselves. Like, it's so sad how that original message gets like corrupted. Like, yeah,
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I'm trying to forgive me 1 second.
dude, you're good.
I'm trying to Nate and I, for those of you who are listening, Nate and I are trying to work on ways that we can, you know, um, work on this content so that you can consume it easier. So I've been taking down a couple of like time signatures of things that I think are like highlights of this podcast. So I just wrote one down. I think this is dope. Uh,
You've been taking good shit.
just
That makes
little, just little Jamie notes, just little
yeah.
Jamie notes. But yeah, I think just like exactly what you're saying, dude. It's like I think that's an important question to ask yourself when you're doing anything. It's like, is this for me or is it for somebody else? And I think something, oh, dude, I wanted to talk about this. This is super like, I'll be super embarrassed about this tomorrow that I said this on the podcast. But
Fuck it, man. This is like our safe space.
right, 100%. And anyone who is judging me, I don't give a fuck. So, uh, I hope that this gives a courage for somebody else to feel that way. Honestly, because that's a really free way to live. Um, I was sitting in my little home gym
Yeah.
doing chest. I texted Nate about chest today, just saying how I just fucking love chest day. And I know this is a lot about the gym, but I think this does really relate to a lot of other things. People have passions and hobbies that they spend time on. So just kind of like pull it into that when you're in your mind about this kind of thing. Um, when you're listening to us. But I was sitting there about to get ready for my next set, excuse me, and I was looking down at my legs, and my legs, like I'm kind of like built like my lower half down is a lot more built up than my upper half is, and that's kind of something that I've been insecure about, right?
You
And I'm looking at like,
dude, you get so many like compliments. Like you have
you know,
trunk legs.
isn't that weird? Like I get the most compliments about the things that I like the least about myself. And that's like something I'm battling with, right? That's fine. Like, and that doesn't like really bog me down too much, but it's on my mind, and I think people will really relate to that.
Yeah.
Um, that's okay. That's okay. Like, and that's what I was talking to myself. Like, I was sitting down at the bench, like, boom, I'm all hyped up. I'm singing some shit. Like, since we did our experiment, like, I don't lift with music anymore. And
You're
it, like,
still doing it without people.
like I did the other day, and I was like, I didn't get as good of a lift in. And so today I didn't, and I was like much better. And I was sitting there looking at my legs, and I was like, fuck, like, like I got some good muscle on these boys, but like got some fat too, right? And I'm sitting there, like, this is gonna sound kind of crazy, but I'm like looking at my legs, and I'm like talking to the fat on my legs.
Get out of me.
I'm dead ass. And I'm like, I'm having a conversation and I'm like, yo, like, this is the result of like, having a good time. And like, this is like the embodiment. This is the physical representation of like all the times that I have, ignored my diet, ignored my training, ignored my self betterment. And like, here I am. Right. And like, that's okay. Like, here it is. But like, oh, you better be fucking ready, baby, because like, we're coming for you. Like, and then I rip my set out. Right. And it's like, it's the kind of thing. It's like that in that moment, in that one moment, and I'm not like this all the time. I found that balance between, self-betterment and self-hate. It's like,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get better, but I love myself because I know that like that part of myself right now that isn't as healthy as it could be is a product of me being happy in a different way.
Fuck, man. Dude, you got your legs out of the cage right now. That's
They're
like
way out of the cage.
they're hanging. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's literally the perfect implementation of reworking that energy in a positive way or a productive way. Like that's so sick. Like
It was a cool moment. That's why I shared it. I know it's weird, but I'm talking to myself, looking at my legs. I'm like, fuck.
everybody's been there in some respect, and if they
Yeah.
haven't, they need to get there. Because I mean, yeah, for you it's legs. For somebody else, it's like maybe like you know their ears or their nose or
Right,
you
right,
know
right, right.
some like little tweak that they have or whatever. Like yeah, it's literally just this is why like this is what bothers me so much. Like we're told all of these like very repeated phrases when we're younger. Be yourself, accept what makes you unique. Like
You
love
can
this
be whatever you want to be.
right. But all of those things feel so contrived and they're said so many times in so many different ways that you're almost just like, they lose meaning after a little bit. They're
Yeah.
just okay, whatever that means.
It's
Like
like saying I love you all the time.
Right. Yeah. Dulls it. It's weird because like now I feel like it's almost like we're getting a second childhood. And that's kind of what the awakening is, like just
Mm.
understanding everything. It's like, whoa, you know what? That's like this podcast has been very true to its name because like we talked about how this started all with the inception of like that conversation where we were like, dude, like this like so many people are blissfully unaware of what's going on in the world. Like we need to go out there, and it's like more so. I feel like I've just realized how unaware I was about things through this, either through listening back to myself say it, or
Mm.
talking with you, or hearing something related to it, or these experiments. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like so fucking cool. Like the amount of growth it's already done. Like, yeah,
10 episodes. That's it.
yeah,
Dude,
but
I couldn't agree more. And it's that kind of thing that's like makes you want to continue, you know. It's like just so grateful that we're in this position where we can do this, and like we had this idea we've been following through, you know, and like I'd love to do this for, you know, as long as we need to do it. Like and that's the kind of thing. It's like, you know, it just things in life when you know you're doing the right thing for the right reason, then you just have to block out anything that tells you not to do it, you know, whether it be, you
yeah,
know, your alternate sources, like things, people that influence you, or you know, anything. It's like, man, like we're out here right now doing our podcast. Like it's like, you know, it's just you and me on Zoom. Like we could have easily been like, you know, we're not at school anymore, let's just wait till we come back. But we didn't. And like I'm so glad we didn't. Like this to me is
same.
like the highlight of my week. And like, you know, at least one of the highlights of my week. And like it just, I don't know, it's awesome. And I hope that people too like gain value out of like viewing this and being like, okay, like
Yeah,
this is cool. Like I can get behind this, you know, and I hope that it inspires people to do what they're thinking of in the back of their head, like that they're a little bit scared to do, because like we're not, like Nate and I don't have shit figured out. Like we're just, all we did was record it. Like, Nate and I talk about this shit all the time, but like we just decided to start recording it. Like and
yeah,
like that might seem like a little bit self-centered, a little bit arrogant, but it's not. It's just like maybe someone else would like this. And if you feel that way about something that you're doing, whether it be art, music, talking, anything, you know, like just try it out. Like
yeah,
it might be dope. You might love it. And even if you're the only one who gets something out of it, you're gonna make that your surroundings better by benefiting from that practice, even
yeah.
if it doesn't benefit anybody else.
That's a perfect way to tie it all together. Dude, that's a perfect ending for this one. I think we're at about like 2 hours right now,
Yeah, we're perfect.
shy, but yeah,
Perfect
dude,
timing.
yeah, that was a ton of fun. Episode
Mm,
10, the cage.
the cage.
Yeah, dude. Good night, everybody, and thank you.
Yeah, we love you. We love you. We'll catch you. We'll catch you next week, episode 11.
Yeah, episode 11. All right. Yeah. Peace, everybody.
Peace.